See if I can get it set up right. Set up on my mug. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Change of scenery today. Thought I would shoot in a different part of the house. Today we are in my spare room. In today's video, I'm going to be doing 25 getting to know you questions, as I've noticed in the last few weeks a surge in incoming tribe members, new subscribers. So I thought now is the perfect time to do a Q&A to reacquaint myself with those of you who have been around for a while and properly introduce myself to those of you who are new. I'm Eileen, hello. I am an American expat living in Switzerland, sharing all of our manic, crazy messiness of life adventures as we live in Europe, and also covering our journey to try and have a second child. So there's a lot of stuff thrown in the mixture over here, and I'm so glad you are with us. Today's questions come from a website called Live Bold and Bloom. I saw another vlogger who pulled questions from this website and went and looked down. I was like, oh, 25 getting to know you questions. Yeah, that should work. I haven't looked at the questions yet, so all of this is going to be off the top of my head. Let's dive straight in. Number one is, what is your favorite childhood memory? I should have probably looked at them before I started taping. Right. Off the top of my head, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of happy childhood, two things actually. Number one is road trips. We used to master a road trip in my family. And let me tell y'all, because it was like the 80s, this is so funny now. Like, you could get arrested for not having your kid like properly buckled in, all safety precautions made. We used to go on road trips, and you guys, we would put the seat down in our, I want to call it a hatchback. It was like a Honda, beautiful brown Honda. Put the seats down, and the kids laid in the back and played like Travel Connect 4 and Travel Battleship. None of this seatbelt mess. So much fun. My brothers and I would go on trips sometimes and lay across the back, the three of us. I remember specifically I would bring friends on trips with me also. We did a lot of camping. So those summer trips, those stick out as the happiest childhood memories. And also, I don't know why it just popped into my mind, sporting events. I grew up playing a lot of soccer when I was a kid. That feeling I felt anytime I did something good in the game, like had a good pass, took a shot on goal, made a save the one season I was goalie and was terrible. There weren't many saves. Looking over and seeing my parents and my mom clapping, giving me thumbs up, and my dad would just go, he wouldn't say anything, he would just go, and it made me feel so good. Isn't that silly that of my whole childhood, I don't remember gifts I received. I don't remember physical things. I just remember the way I felt on trips and getting that reinforcement on the soccer field. Isn't that crazy? I'm sure if I gave it much more in-depth thought, I would come up with more examples, but that's nice. That's nice that that's the first thing I thought of. Number two, if you had a chance for a do-over in your life, what would you do differently? Ooh, I could be really cliche and be like, I wouldn't change anything because everything's a lesson and everything happens for a reason. No, I'd change things. I think, again, I have two things. The first thing is I was pretty awful in high school. I had the big attitude in high school, and there were times I definitely wasn't cool with my parents, and especially not with my mom. I'll never be able to apologize to her enough for just a know-it-all little brat, basically. Oh, not nice. If I could do it over again and have the wisdom that I have now, I would choose very differently the way I behaved in certain situations. Because as a mom now, I know that like there was a lot of stuff she was going through that I knew nothing about. And I've said it to her before, but let's say it publicly. Mom, I'm sorry, and I love you. Oh, I love you so much. The other thing is, when I moved to the UK, I would have better mentally prepared myself for what that meant. I had a great career in New York. I was making a lot of money as a single woman, and then to move to UK and not be super familiar with what the industry, I was in the fashion industry, what the industry was like in the UK and how I was going to be getting paid a lot less. The profession was seen very differently in the UK as to what it was in New York. In New York, you are an absolute rock star when you're a designer. It's a lot of fun. In London, it's still a super fun profession, but the designers are kind of seen as the starving artists creative drama people, and it's more about the merchandising business side. That's where all the money and prestige is. And again, young, a lot younger, a lot more naive. Things got to me a lot more than they do now. I wish I would have been more mentally prepared, and I probably would have dealt with that transition a little better. I have 2 things for every answer. It's gonna be a long video. Right, number 3. How did you two meet? There's 2 sides to this story, mine and his. If you asked Andy, he would say that we met on July 14th, 2007 at a bar called Tosca in New York City. My mom had been in town visiting me, and she had just left to go back to North Carolina. I had run a 10K race that morning in Central Park, so I was like smelly and sweaty. My mom had just come back to the airport, and my friend messages me. She must have called me or texted me on my like old school Razor phone, Nokia Razor, and said like, hey, we're at Tosca, come meet up with us. I was like, I'm really gross, I'll just come for a quick drink. So I go in stinking. I remember I had like a race t-shirt on and like a denim skirt and flip-flops, like ridiculous. Walked in there and somebody was talking to me about some training I was doing for a half marathon at that point, and I heard this guy go, oh right, do you run races? That is my awesome British accent. Andy thinks this is the first time we met. What Andy doesn't know, or he knows because I remind him often, is we had actually met in March, a few months before, on St. Patrick's Day. Again, these mutual friends were throwing a party at their house for the rugby union. Ireland was playing England, I want to say, that morning. We went to a party at a friend's house, and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, this rugby match, because Europe was 5-6 hours ahead. Andy has already had a few drinks because he's been out watching a rugby match before or watching a football match before with a friend at a bar. So he shows up nice and jolly at 10 o'clock in the morning. It might have been a little later, and I was in brunch mode. I had maybe had like a mimosa or a Bloody Mary, but I wasn't like plastered or anything. We were playing beer pong at this party, and I played beer pong against Andy, and I thought he was cute at the time. But he was hanging out with a friend of mine, and I was hanging out with this Australian dude. We played beer pong, had a little bit of banter. I thought he was cute, but that was really it. That was it. And then we met again in July, and he wasn't dating anybody, I wasn't dating anybody. We realized we lived across the street from each other in Manhattan, which just like doesn't happen. Like, it was like, oh, where do you live? Soho. So do I. What street? Sullivan Street. So do I. Crazy, crazy. Went on our first date the next night, and the rest, as they say, is history. Number 4 is, what do you feel most proud of? It's funny, if Andy was sitting here in this video with me, he would say, you should feel most proud of the fact that you have moved to a new country and you have succeeded. Not everybody could just pack up their life and move somewhere new and leave everything they're comfortable with. I'm glad I've done it, but it's not the thing I'm the most proud of in life. The thing I am the most proud of, and it's along the same lines, moving to Europe was not that difficult for me because I had already made a big move in my life. The day I graduated from university, the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, go Seahawks, the next day or 2 days later, I packed everything I had into a giant U-Haul truck and moved to New York City. That is the thing I am definitely the most proud of, because the whole path my life has taken has been because of that move. All of the absolute incredible friends that I have are because of that move. All of the success I have had with a fashion career and the tools I have learned with fashion design, all of that is from moving to New York City, and it's just fully shaped the person that I've become. Obviously, North Carolina is always going to be home to me, but when people ask me where I'm from, I'm like, oh, I was born and raised in North Carolina, but in many ways, New York City is home to me, and it is. I just love that city more than anything, and I am so thankful and also so proud that I just went, you know what? That's what I want to do. Put everything in the U-Haul truck. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Just drive. And I drove myself to New York City. And that, yeah, definitely the thing I'm most proud of. I'm gonna have to break this up into 2 parts. This is part 1 because I'm on number 5. We're 12 minutes in. So maybe I'll do 12 today and then the next 12 next week. Number 5 is, what is your favorite music? You guys, when I was a kid, I was always like, I am not gonna be like my parents. I am not gonna grow up and listen to oldies, and now oldies are like, what, 80s and 90s music? I've become my parents. I'm not really up on the latest music trends, unfortunately. If there's some big crazy hit that you're hearing everywhere, yeah, I'll pick it up. And I've got people that were big when I was at university, like Pink and who else? Well, Lady Gaga, because I was really into her in New York. I follow their music, so I guess pop is the short answer. But I really like to listen to like Lisa Loeb and Sarah McLachlan and all the kind of like 90s Lilith Fair singers, Norah Jones. I love all that kind of music. That's not very specific, but you get the idea. Number 6 is, if you could travel anywhere, where would you go and why? Well, I'm super lucky. I can think about where I want to travel, and I can, if I really, really want to go, I can make plans to go travel to that place. I've been to some awesome, awesome places over the years. I've been able to go to Vietnam. I've been to India. I've been to China, a lot of places in Europe. But where would I go now and why? Do you know what? I think I would do a really, there's a couple. I'm giving you multiple answers, I'm sorry. I would really like to go to South America because I haven't been to South America yet. That's definitely on my list. I'd like to do like the Bolivia, Argentina, Brazil. Yeah, I'd like to go to South America. I would also like to go to Thailand because I've just heard it's absolutely beautiful and the people there are so lovely. And the Maldives, because it's the Maldives. The water is crystal clear. It's stunningly beautiful. Those are the 3 on the top of my list. And New Zealand. And Alaska. And another trip that Andy and I really, really want to do, we want to do a road trip through the United States and do like super small towns and just really roll our sleeves up and get in with the locals. For Andy, learn more about the American culture, but for me also to learn about different parts of America that I don't know anything about. I know a lot about New York, I know a lot about North Carolina, and just discover more of the beautiful country. I've done a road trip across the states before, but I was in high school and I'd like to do it as an adult. I think that would be really, really cool. If you could only keep 5 possessions, what would they be? Ooh. Most of you know I'm not a big possessions person. I'm doing a whole series this year about decluttering and getting rid of stuff. If you subscribe to my channel, I post those videos on Monday. If I could keep 5 possessions, what would they be? I guess my camera, because I'm able to document everything in my life. I'm such a creative kind of visual thinker. Without these visual reference points, I forget a lot of things, and I'm so thankful that I have video footage of Patrick when he was much younger and all of that. So yeah, I would say my camera. Number 2 would probably be my son's little rabbits. You've probably seen them in some videos. I look forward to having them when I'm like 90 years old. They're just, they encompass everything beautiful and innocent about his childhood, and every time I see them, Marie Kondo says, does it spark joy? It sparks so much joy, my heart could explode when I see these little rabbits, and I know the comfort and joy that they bring to my son. So that would be the second thing. He would say the same if we were asking him. They'd be 1 and 2 and that would be it. The third thing, oh gosh, I'm just gonna do 3 because I really struggle to do 5. My coffee maker, a bottle of wine, and a block of cheese. Number 8 is, what teacher in school made the most impact on you and why? I've had a lot of really good teachers. I've had some bad teachers. I have 2 that are coming to mind. Oh gosh, I've got a few. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna throw out a few. Jan Jacob was a high school teacher that taught me government and economics. I had 0 interest in politics, 0 interest in any of that crap in my mind when I was in high school, but she had a way of making the branches of government and everything politics, learning the history of it and how it all works, making it super interesting. And that's not an easy thing to do with a bunch of know-it-all high schoolers, as I mentioned in my earlier question about what I was in high school. She made things super interesting, and I think of her often now that I really, really am interested in politics. She was great. I had a biology teacher that was hot. I know that's not what you're asking, but he was really good looking. Not important to the question. At university, there were 2 teachers. One was a psychology professor. Kim Sorry, I think his name was. He did this really, really cool thing in class once, and I was just like, wow, what an impact this, and I remember it 20 years later, so it must have been impactful. We were all sitting listening to a lecture he was doing, and all of a sudden this guy came in. He had a rival ECU cup in his hand, and he came in, he was stumbling. So he came in the class where our teacher was lecturing, so he was right next to our teacher, and he was like, UNCW sucks, ECU rules, and threw a drink in our teacher's face. And we were all just shocked. And then our teacher was like, what? And the guy started running up the stairs out of the auditorium, and our teacher chased him and was like, what, you asshole, blah, 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 blah. And we were just all completely shocked, okay? And then he walks back down the stairs towards the front of the class, and he's wiping his face off, and he says, okay, everybody get out a piece of paper and write down everything you can remember about that guy that just walked in. And it was awesome because we were like, okay. And then we slowly started to realize he was testing us to illustrate that eyewitness accounts of crimes and accidents are often not reliable because it's really hard in the moment to soak in those details that you need to remember if you are at a crime scene or whatever. And the lesson he taught us, which I'll share with you, is if you're at a car accident or if you witness a crime or anything, first thing you should do is look at your watch and note what time it is, because that's very important information should something go to trial and they're stringing a timeline together. There's your free tip for the day. I loved all my teachers. You guys did an awesome job. Thank you so much. This is what you created. Number 9 is, what do you want your tombstone to say? Ugh. I have like a shuddering, paralyzing fear of death and being buried. I'll probably be cremated, but I don't want to be cremated. None of this is important. Maybe she laughed and she made others laugh. And then I'll probably have a really bad pun or a picture of a drag queen or something. That'll hopefully make people smile and laugh. Yeah, it won't be anything serious or lovey-dovey. There won't be any Bible verses on my tombstone. Next question. Number 10 is, what was one of the most defining moments in your life? Maybe it was when I accepted my first job as a full-time designer, because I didn't go to undergraduate university studying fashion design. I had no intention of being a designer. It was one of those luck and chance and timing and all of that that led me to a career in fashion, which I can make another video about if you're interested. I was working at Coach at the time, doing like part-time design, part-time executive assistant work. And I still have the email that my boss at Coach sent me to say, congratulations, you are now officially a designer. The sense of accomplishment and all the really, really hard work that went into that moment and what that would create career-wise for me in New York and in London was pretty incredible. So that was probably a defining moment. Number 11 is, why did you choose the profession that you chose? Which I just said. I had chosen to hopefully be a musical theater actress on Broadway. That's why I moved to New York. But I quickly learned that life on ramen noodles ain't cute. So I had no money, I couldn't shop, and New York City is the greatest city in the world. It's a lot greater if you've got some cash. I'm gonna be honest with you, if you're thinking about moving to New York. I was temping and I got offered a job to come be the assistant to the CEO at J.Lo by Jennifer Lopez. And that was how I stumbled into a fashion career. It was just the temp job I was on happened to be at a fashion company. The CEO happened to need an assistant, and her and I clicked. And then from there, it all kind of started to happen. And again, I can make another video about that, but I didn't choose the fashion life, it chose me. I'll do 2 more questions today. We'll do Lucky Friday the 13th. It's not Friday the 13th, 13 questions. How do you spend your free time? I don't have a ton of free time, and I'm very careful to say that because I don't work full-time anymore, and I have no concept of what kind of busy that is. And people who have multiple children, I completely bow down to you. But I don't have a ton of free time, but when I do on the weekends, living in Europe, we do a lot outside. We go into the woods, we go into the hills, and we hike a lot. Now that it's winter, we do a lot of skiing and hanging out on the mountains in the snow. In the warmer months, we spend a lot of time on the lake. You've probably seen in some of my other videos, I live on beautiful Lake Zurich, and we can go swimming out in the lake and do lots of fun stuff. In my spare time when I'm indoors, if Patrick's not around, this is really rare that I get to do this, but I watch RuPaul's Drag Race like a devoted drag queen fan that I am. I absolutely love it. I love watching documentaries and I love listening to podcasts. And the last question for today, number 13, is if you won the lottery, what would you do? Oh, we've all thought about this. Okay, I have a plan. Every time the lottery goes above, like, let's say 200 million in the United States, I'll message my family and be like, buy me a ticket, buy me a ticket. And I frighteningly start going through my mind, what am I gonna do? Who am I gonna call? And I think it's gonna happen. And then I'm genuinely disappointed when I don't win the lottery. How sad is that? Okay, call Andy or text him and say, I'm sorry, you have to come home right now. He'd have to leave work, okay? Get him home. He'd get home and think I was dying. I'd say I'm not dying. Then he'd be annoyed that I've made him come home. I would tell him. Then I would contact a man named Joe LaMastra. I've been thinking about this since my days working at J.Lo by Jennifer Lopez because I worked with Joe there. He was Tommy Hilfiger's attorney because Tommy Hilfiger owned J.Lo. Tommy would come into the office every now and then. Hilarious and such a nice man. Joe was his attorney and he also did some advising for Jennifer. Yes, he did. He did do some advising for Jennifer Lopez. So I would contact him and say, I've just won the lottery. What should I do? I would need immediate attorney advice and money's no issue at this point. So I could afford him and he's just a nice guy. He would help me anyway. He would put me in touch with an attorney. That would be done. And then I would start to tell my family. Well, if my family bought me the ticket, they know in the United States, but if I won the Euro Millions, I would not ever come out in public about it. There'd be no champagne and a giant check. Never, never. Y'all hear those lottery stories? Ooh, it gets dark. Families break up, suicides, depression, prostitutes. Now I'm just making stuff up, but it's not good. I would keep it as private as possible. You guys, that's gonna be all for today because if I get through 25 questions, this is gonna take way, way, way too long. So I'll do part 1 this week and then we'll do part 2 next week. I hope this has given you some insight into who I am. If you guys want more of the fun and madness, you can find me over on Instagram. Otherwise, I will hopefully see you next week. Don't forget to subscribe. It's right there, hit subscribe. Have an awesome weekend, guys. Bye.